Okay, so I now will introduce our next speaker, Aid. And Aid is a UK reader since 1996. Aid, go ahead, please.
Right, so the title really of this presentation is trying to explore why few mortals ever dare to draw on anything like the sum total of personality credits established by the combined ministries of grace, nature and grace. So now I'm not going to spend an awful lot of time talking about my personal finance, but I thought I would just make by way of anecdote. I had a credit card. I decided to get rid of it. I felt pretty liberated when I did, because I had no more monthly payments. I had no credit limits to worry about. And because I'd no longer had a credit card, I suddenly became very, very keen on personality credits. I wanted to understand more about them because I'm always in the market for credit. And I thought there was a lot of benefit from finding out how I could draw on the sum total of personality credits, because you don't have to have a good credit rating, as I understand, to draw on personality credits. So I started to investigate through the Urantia book what personality credits were. So the content of this presentation is around exploring the Urantia book, trying to find out what the book has to say about personality credits, because I find it quite an elusive subject. Looking into the Ministry of Nature and Grace, how does this apply? What is the Ministry of Grace? Who are the agents of grace? And I wanted to look into the Master Seraphim because they draw quite close to us. And I wanted to look into human ability, which relates to nature. Then I wanted to draw on something Jesus had said in the parable of the pounds. And then I was thinking about the extent to which our religious faith may help with the extent to which our religious faith may actually help with us enriching our impoverished souls. Then I go on to next steps, where I throw down some challenges, and I have some questions for you, because how I want to play this presentation is by asking you to help me to dig deeper and to understand what personality credits are. So some of the questions I posed to myself was that, what are personality credits? How do you draw on them? What happens if you don't? And why are people reluctant about drawing on personality credits, particularly when you don't need a good credit rating, just courage? So this is what the Urantia book has to say about personality credits. It says, few mortals ever dare to draw on the sum of personality credits established by the combined ministries of nature and grace. The majority of impoverished souls are truly rich, but they refuse to believe it. And what I was taken by was they refused to believe it. And I wanted to explore that further. Why do people refuse to believe that they are fellowshipped by grace, which combines with their nature? And I think it combines to help us to do something more than we would ordinarily be able to do if we just totally relied on our natural abilities. So I thought first about nature. And I thought what distinguishes us from the animals. And I think I picked out about, there are many things that do. One is our moral instinct for service, the idea of serving one another. Also, our natural curiosity about our environment. We want to understand why things happen. I took science to be more a quest for knowledge than actually the natural sciences. And this is combined with our spiritual insight. And I would say these are where the adjutants of worship and wisdom, the adjutant mind spirits of worship and wisdom, impinge on our minds. I mean, animals, I suspect, do things for the herd. There is a kind of herd mentality in certain animals. They do certain things to assure the preservation of the herd. But with humans, I think this is a much higher, a much more enhanced reaction to our environment. Okay, so I looked at, so I started at the very end, in the tradition of the Urantia book, and I thought about the divine injunction, or what I call the mission statement. Be ye perfect as I am perfect. And I've always thought that this quest for perfection is a journey, and it's a journey that starts on this planet when we're constantly trying to resolve our problems of existence, trying to adjust to this planet, trying to do this in the context, I hope, of serving others. And what the Urantia book says, and by the way, everything I'm saying, unless I say otherwise, is taken from the Urantia book. These are, in some cases, direct, in most cases, actually direct quotes from the Urantia book. And what it says, when we attain that perfection, a lot of it will be by our own effort, a creature attainment, by actually living and adjusting to this environment, constantly problem solving and adjusting our reaction to this environment. But it will be sprinkled with grace. Now, I cannot say to you what the percentage is that, when you attain that level of perfection, it was 40% your effort, 60% grace, or it was 75% your effort, 25% grace, but there will be a combination of the two. So I thought more about grace. Now, so we know that God loves us, loves men. The Son serves men. The Son shares sonship with us. God the Son shares sonship with us, which to me implies brotherhood. Which when I think about brotherhood and familyhood, I think about service, doing things for the good of the whole, not just for yourself, as you would do in a family, caring about other people. And God the Son is also referred to as the mother's son. So I imply a mother's love and a mother's duty towards her family, that maternal instinct. Then the Spirit, God the Spirit, inspires us. I think he inspires us right from this planet in constantly questing to improve. He's the God of action. He's the God of motion, the God of constant progress. And now progress is not always linear. There are dips and peaks in progressing forward. So I was thinking, okay, so in terms of, so how does grace apply to us? How do we access this grace? And I thought about the planetary seraphim and our thought adjusters. Tabamansa is a final letter. He came from a world, it came from the first planet to go into rebellion, if you like, a quarantined planet. He's now the supervisor of decimal planets, the planets that are earmarked as experimentary planets. So he certainly has worn the T-shirt and certainly understands the challenges of being on a planet where you've had a planetary prince go into rebellion and you've had the material sons and daughters default, some of the key uplifters of the planet not actually carrying out their mission, and the implications that's had for the planet as a whole in its progress. And Tabamantha says of the thought adjusters, you've helped to adjust the mistakes and to compensate for the shortcomings of all who labor on this confused planet. So as I'm going through personality traits, I'm constantly getting a sense of, constant work, constant desire to progress, constantly having to deal with obstacles, constantly having problems to resolve. So I looked at where personality credits might coincide with our quest for progress. And I looked at, there are more angels, there are 12 actually, but for the sake of brevity, I've looked at 4 because I thought for what I was saying, these were the most relevant. So I looked at the angels of health, and these angels actually are, their job is to actually help human agencies promote health and prevent disease. Now, I do wonder, although I suspect scientists will challenge me, I wonder the extent to which they've helped us during this pandemic in finding very quickly a vaccine. Now, it's not without human effort, but we do not know to what extent we received, if you like, personality credits or some intervention from grace. We're not at the end of it yet, but we're making progress. I also thought about the angels of industry. And if you think about the number of economic theories and economic practice that man is, or women too, are constantly developing and evolving. And you do wonder to the extent which angels are inspiring this. Now, they're not going to give us the answers, but they will continuously help us to find those answers. And there's not going to be an easy answer to any of these problems, but we've never stopped trying to find an answer, trying to find a way of overcoming our environment and trying to find a way of improving the economic conditions among the people on this planet. It's slow progress, but it's something governments are conscious of. I like to believe it's progress in the right direction. And I also think about the angels of diversion, who foster play, humor, and rest. And we're told that one thing that would astound us on more advanced planets that have not suffered the trauma that this planet has, we would be amazed at their culture. And I think that's something they're trying to achieve for our planet. And I'm thinking also about the angels of enlightenment, the angels that promote education. Again, it's absolutely clear to practically every country, and everybody is promoting education. Yes, it's patchy and uneven, but the most important thing is the desire, the aims, the overall direction. And if you think about the number of theories that come out about how we're to educate our children, and some of them don't work, I accept, but there is a never-ending stream of possibilities. You try this, maybe it doesn't work, you try something else. So I'm thinking at a planetary level, the extent to which we might be receiving some kind of personality credit. I also took an example from, again, from the Urantia book, and this is to do with the celestial artisans. They embellish the Urantia life. And this is, again, an example of possibly how human ability, natural human ability, is developed and progressed upon by the agencies of grace. And what this is broadly saying is that some humans have specialized ability. I was thinking, for example, great artists, great authors, great architects. And what we're told, that this wasn't sort of a gift arbitrarily given by God. It comes from nature. There's something hereditary about it. They probably had ancestors that really liked doing cave paintings and really liked building edifices. But where there is true ability, the thought adjuster, if it's of significant experience, builds on this and kind of harmonizes the human talent with spiritual insight that constantly allows us to progress our ability on this planet. I mean, if you look over time and you look at the early buildings on this planet, so the kind of architectural masterpieces, and we're not there yet, you'll see constant improvement. I mean, it's possible people might say, well, it's just natural human ability improving, but you know, I'm dare to believe that possibly there is some influence of personality credit. Now, I wanted to talk about keeping the financial theme going. This was a parable that Jesus said, I suppose, told to his apostles. There were actually two parables. There's one of the talents that he told to his wider discipleship. And this parable of the pounds was focused actually on his apostles. And this parable is about how we give account of our stewardship. And it's about somebody is given £10, and although I've kind of started with a kind of monetary theme, but it's not necessarily £10 in money. Somebody is given £5 and somebody is given, I believe, £1. It's more about our abilities, and it's more about how we give account for ourselves. You know, what can we say we've done to serve? Because we know that in order to enter the kingdom, we just need to believe in sonship. We need to believe that we're children of God. But to progress in the kingdom, we need to do something. The Supreme Being said it's not just enough to be, you also need to do. And it's a question, everybody has their abilities. Some people are endowed with great ability, have great environment, have great opportunities. Some people, you know, more modest ability, more modest opportunities. And some people may have limited ability, but what this parable is drawing out that is whatever ability you have, how are you going to give account for it? To those who have a lot, and much is expected. To those that have a medium amount, maybe a medium amount expected. But even to those who think they don't have anything, if they would think about drawing on the personality credits of looking to the combined ministry of nature and grace, they would feel less impoverished. And because what happened with the person that turned up with £1, they felt, I don't have much to offer you, buried it, didn't do anything with it, and said, well, to be honest with you, I thought you were a pretty hard taskmaster. I haven't done anything with the £1 that I have. And so Jesus turned around and said, what I will say to that person is, well, to you that did nothing with it, I'm going to take it away and give it to the person that did the most. And what the parable draws out is that Jesus will give a reward to each person in line with their abilities. So why I put this in is to draw out how much we do need personality credits. And I think this is a good example of possibly what happens if you do not draw on your personality credits. So I looked at it and I thought, I wondered, about religious faith. So if we're unclear, or some people are unclear that they're rich, but they think they're poor, I just wondered the extent to which our religious faith could help us actually believe in the enrichment of our souls. And if you think back, one of the things that man has over the animals is spiritual insight. So again, there were many more aspects to this in the book, but I picked 4 which I thought were the most relevant. And I was thinking that our religious faith should engender a sublime trust in the goodness of God, even in the face of bitter disappointment and crushing defeat. As we're trying to adjust to intellectual and testing social situations, we may meet with crushing defeat. Think about all the policies that have been maybe put in place that haven't worked. Think about maybe when you had some task to carry out or some dream, and it's been met with disappointment, and perhaps you've been defeated in that particular achievement. Perhaps maybe a way of thinking of that defeat, in quotes, is a learning experience. Perhaps rather than seeing it as a defeat, it shows resilience and trust in God. I was thinking also about where people experience natural adversity and physical calamity, the number of times that you see on television where people have lost everything through earthquakes, tsunamis, storms, and how sapping that must be of human courage. Even if you're not somebody who particularly puts all your trust into earthly things, having your home swept away must be profoundly traumatic. However, it is amazing how people refined their courage and refined their fortitude to go on. What about where people have debilitating physical diseases that are some way physically challenged, are able to live a life that we would consider to be normal, that have so many challenges? How they maintain their zest and how they overcome those hurdles. I also think about how we are actually handling this pandemic, which has really changed our lives in an unprecedented manner. I think about what the Urantia community achieved. The fact that we're even having this webinar shows our fortitude in trying to use this situation to drive some good from it. I think also about the hackathon, people being inspired by the coronavirus to actually focus on what we can do to serve other people. And the last thing I wanted to say on this, and I think that was the last of the in the book, of the aspects of religious faith that can help us as we adjust to environment. And this is the biggest challenge, goes right on worshipping God in spite of anything and everything, dares to declare, even though he slay me, I will serve him. Jesus said, let all earthly things crash. His focus was on God, that sublime trust. And that takes an amazing amount of courage, I think. So I just thought about, okay, so I just thought some next steps. So if we're thinking about personality credits, you know, what can we possibly do, you know, to try and access some of these credits? So I thought, permit the thought adjuster to fight for you and to fight with you. I always ask my thought adjuster to fight for me and to fight with me, because the thought adjusters, they are creating a spiritual counterpart of my life. And the spiritual counterpart may not necessarily be the same as the blueprint for that counterpart is the life I'm living now, but with a much more expanded horizon. The things that I think are important perhaps are more trivial to the thought adjuster. Perhaps where I'm facing the greatest difficulties in adjusting to my environment, facing intellectual and both social challenges, the thought adjuster sees those less as challenges, more of opportunities for me to develop my faith and my trust in God. If everything was going smoothly, if I were a Havana native, I would have natural trust. I wouldn't be having to address and to resolve the problems of my existence. Another thing, do we allow our thought adjusters to constantly bring forth the pictures of the real motive, the final aim and eternal purpose of all of this difficult uphill struggle with the commonplace problems of our material world? I believe my thought adjuster has done that for me, but it helps us to understand and to frame our current existence within a wider picture. Maybe even to think a little bit more cosmically. The thought adjusters do care about our material struggles on this world, but they really are promoting for us and helping us to have real success and real prosperity. And I think this is kind of the difference between a purely material concept of prosperity. Great, the idea of lots of free credit, you know, my expanding wardrobe, but the real prosperity is the development of my Urantia soul, the sort of values, not things of value, but the sort of values that have an internal destination, that are sort of values that will last through eternity. And I think the last thing I was thinking in next steps is dare to draw on your personality credits. I certainly asked for personality credits, particularly since I don't have a credit card anymore, but I know that my personality credits are not good for Macy's or any of the top end department stores. But good for me as I move through my life on this planet and think about the adventure to come. So I'm not sure how best to deal with this, but I wanted to really throw it open to people, to find out, what they think are personality credits. How do you draw on them? Why are people reluctant? And what happens if you don't draw on them? So I'm going to stop the presentation because my intention was to have a relatively short presentation, but really open it up to discussion, because I think it's one of these subjects that merits other people's opinions. I've just given my very broad and rather halting understanding of personality credits. Some people may well have much deeper insight into this, and I'd be really, really interested in hearing from you.
I have a question. As far as personality credits, it's a term I've never heard before, yet it's intriguing. And your whole talk, thank you. It was just wonderful. And I have to give definitely further thought to it. But when you speak of a personality credit, is it your own terminology or is it from Urantia?
It's from the Urantia book. I should have mentioned, it's from the Urantia motor.
I haven't gotten there yet. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I had a bit of a technological problem. My notes, I couldn't see my notes, so I may have forgotten some of the things I was going to say. So I'll say them now. It's from Urantia motor. The motor is a stereophonic way of I don't know, I also motor like admonishments or proverbs in some way, or statements, but it's a stereophonic way. There was a Urantia counterpart of certain statements made in the Urantia book. Now, one of these statements is that few mortals ever dare to draw on their personality credits, established by the combined nature of the combined ministry of nature and grace. That's what the Urantia book says. But then it goes on to explain it in what I call maybe more everyday language, and say many impoverished souls refuse to believe they're actually rich. So that's the counterpart, if you like, but it's taken from the Urantia book. I do find it quite elusive, and that's why I'm looking for group wisdom on this one.
Go ahead, Hara. You're muted.
Yeah, I just wanted to explain the motor. When we're on the Mansion Worlds, we're taught a new way of looking at philosophy. And in order to teach us these new philosophical truths, they take truths from our own human philosophy. And then which is what you've just told us, and they give examples of our human philosophy. And then we translate that into the new Urantia motor, but they're not allowed to give us the Urantia meanings because we're not there yet. So they just give us the human philosophy, and that's one of the human ones that they quote.
So, Aid, do you see a difference between mercy credits and personality credits?
Yeah, I do actually. Personality credits are credits. Mercy is a debit. You don't want to get overdrawn on your mercy credits. There is a link between the two. The mercy credits are They were given a lot of mercy credits, given loads, but I get the impression that they're a finite number, but they're enough for human survival in terms of mercy credits. I think they compensate for when we do things wrong. It's mercifully overlooked, but there is, because they're finite. Although a lot, if you're sincere, you should never ever run them down. But if you did run out of mercy credits, they do say you become spiritually insolvent, and I'm not quite sure what that means, to be honest with you. So while I might want to max out my personality credit card, I don't want to max out my mercy credit card, because I see that more as a debit card as opposed to a credit card. Just using that analogy.
Okay, well, if I can go on, to me,
Yeah.
I think personality credits is part of that realization of sonship, that we're children of God, that, you know, and we have this opportunity in front of us and before us. We have the kingdom available to us, and part of claiming your personality credits is to live in that kingdom now, be in the spirit now, be in the joy now, you know, and enjoy that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Because I think it's open to interpretation. I think it's, you know, I found it quite elusive, to be honest with you. I just looked through the book to see what I thought about it, and I'm really interested in what other people think.
Yeah, I think you can get a really good idea of what mercy credits are in terms of nature and grace. If you look at the story of Jesus of Nazareth, and who he talked to and what he talked about. So he was always talking to the nature of man from a perspective of grace. So he was seeking to see the highest in a man he can be as a son of man and as a son of God. And his whole goal was basically to bring that son of man into sonship with God. So if you go and you look at, if you want to know what it looks like when your mercy credits run out, one thing which can happen is mercy, nature credits can be very high. So you can have high skill, you can have supremely high intellectual skill and supremely high physical capacities, but you can have extremely low moral capacity. And that means that by nature, you actually have very low credit. So a person who doesn't have any compassion or kindness, they're manipulative. They're always out to seek power, control, to take advantage of other people. These people might be extremely intelligent, very talented, very charismatic, but they have an aspect, although it's high on others, and they have practically a zero credit in terms of grace. So, but you have to realize, I think in understanding that, you can look at the situation where he spoke to people and he said that your mercy has run out, which he did say to, basically he said at the end of his journey, he said, look, I've given you every possibility for grace and mercy, but you spurned my mercy, and therefore justice comes. So anybody who is breaking the law, and you have a righteous judge, they're a person who is spending their mercy credits. Jesus is the maximum quotient of personality credits, and we're all trying to be like Jesus. Jesus said, you can be like, it's good enough for you to be like your master. So if you want to have max credit, follow Jesus, be his disciple, and do what he did.
So just why are people so reluctant to draw on their personality credits? Because it seems to me that you need personality credits to counterbalance this mercy credits. You know, if you're drawing on your personality credits, hopefully you're not having to draw so much on your mercy credits. So if we focus on the personality credits, that should tip the scale in our favor. But why do you think people are so reluctant? You know, it's a few mortals draw on the sum of the personality credits? Why are people so reluctant?
Well, Jesus spoke about, he said, people are reluctant to draw on their skills and talent. And when you break free and you dedicate it to truth, beauty, and goodness, then you're able to start capitalizing or potentializing all your personality credits because you follow truth more than you follow the herd, for example.
Has anybody here drawn on their personality credits? Does anybody want to share an experience where they feel they've drawn on their personality credits?
Hey, Audie, it's Margie. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
I think I've drawn on my personality credits a number of times, but there have been times that opportunities have been presented to me, and out of fear or reticence or laziness or procrastination, I haven't taken advantage of an opportunity that was presented. However, there were other times that opportunities were presented, and I took advantage of them, and they helped me, okay? In both, I have to say, in my professional life, my personal life, my personal relationships, but the older I've gotten, the more I look at it as spiritual. In other words, I have been given many opportunities that I recognize now. It wasn't that the opportunities have not always been there. It's my ability to put my ego or my fear or my reticence or my laziness or my procrastination aside and take advantage of those, and even to go outside perhaps my comfort zone, but realizing that there's really no reason to fear anymore. I have to say that as I've gotten older, my fear quotient has gone down, and my the quest of experience has certainly gone up. So that's kind of the way I look at it. I agree with you on mercy, the difference in personality credits and mercy credits. However, knowing how merciful the Father and the Son are, and until you basically have decided to personally suicide, you cannot draw your mercy credits to zero. That's a decision where you've become spiritually bankrupt and there's nothing left, but remember that they said that they would wait and do forever if it only meant to save one, and which goes along with the parable about the shepherd and the one sheep. So I that it's only when somebody is totally gone to evil, sin, and iniquity, then no amount of mercy you can heap on them is going to redeem them. But if there is one smidgen of redemption thing that is redeemable, there will always be an overabundance of mercy present. So anyway, that's my take on it.
That's really helpful. I just wanted to build on something you said. It's about, exactly as you said, it's about getting out of your comfort zone, which is not a great place to be because it's not your comfort zone. And it's about faith. It's about believing I think it's that people simply do not believe. There's a tendency to look at your current situation and think, if you're one of those people who feels that they've been dealt a pound rather than £10, is to look at your situation. I think, well, I don't have much to offer. I don't have much to give, and possibly not take yourself to your own limits outside of your comfort zone, because by actually expending that one talent you have, that £1 you have, by investing it, you accrue a little bit of interest, and Jesus looks at that and rewards accordingly. And I think that's part of it. I just would like to hear if anybody else has, how they've drawn on their personality credits, or if they haven't drawn on their personality credits, will they draw on their personality credits?
So personally, I think the greatest example you can look at for burning up your personality credits are the rebels. Lucifer is the personality credit. His nature is the Lenonendek nature. So his mind and his body is different to ours, but he's just, so that's and he and his team have exercised that function where they're going to the point of annihilation with that aspect. But one thing I'd like to talk about is the atheistic idea. So in your Urantia book, it says atheism is the maximization of ugliness. But when I say that, I don't want people to think that they should look down on and be disgusted in atheism, because it might be the maximization of ugliness, but atheism is not the maximization of untruth, because when you're dealing with false religion and you reject false religious paradigms and false structures of morality, you're actually maximizing your truth quotient, and you're looking for the objective scientific viewpoint. So I personally think that people who are atheists and they're not closed-minded and dogmatic about it are actually in a very good position when the Urantia movement actually shows social cohesion and dynamic social and cultural influence over the masses. Then atheists who are open-minded will go, well, that is actually a religion that's worthy. Now, I know a lot of people don't like the idea that Urantia is a religion, but for me, it's obviously apparent that that's what Jesus was seeking to achieve, is a new kind of religion, one which is appealing to children, to scientists, and to people who are even materialists and secularists, to find that place of being able to develop their personality credits and their grace credits fully through education about the realities of life through what the Urantia book provides.
I was trying to make a distinction between personality and mercy credit, because I very much see personality credit as something positive. It's about service. It's about adapting to life. It's something, I see it as what we should be focusing on. I think if you focus on drawing personality credits, engaging your nature and grace, hopefully you don't have to think too much about insolvency, because you've got credit, you've got capital, even if it's not in monetary form. So taking that theme forward is, does anybody else have an example of where they've drawn on personality credits, or where they think personality credits have been available? I think, Hara, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I think we all have opportunities every day in every way to draw our personality credits. I mean, there are challenges every day in our lives, when we're on our own, when we're with other people. And I think the secret is really to try and develop a unified personality, because and we've got the perfect example in Jesus. He was a perfectly unified personality. And there are so many quotes in the book about what that is. The bit about the disciples and what they see in Jesus, that tells us exactly how we need to be. And he's giving us a perfect example. That he's telling us the qualities we need in order to, for example, lose our self-importance. And that's what, I mean, a lot of people suffer from that. Being humble, being unassuming, the need to take risks in order to develop qualities like being brave and courageous, being honest, honesty in our dealings with others, without being hurtful or selfish, qualities. All of these are qualities we can develop in our daily life, and taking some of those that you know that you perhaps lack and working on them consciously is a way of doing it. Thank you.
So I think we're coming up to time. If we can start to wrap it up.
Well, can I just thank you very much for participating in this. And my last comment is, do you dare to draw on your personality credits if you haven't started to draw on them? Suggest you do. As far as I'm aware, no credit limit, no annual charges, and that's all I've got to say.
Very good.